Alright guys, so I'm out here in my adventure hat today because it's raining and I don't want to get soaking wet. But I want to go over something. I want to go over how Ford really us over on when it comes to wheel selection and replacements and tire sizes and yeah, how they had the last laugh here, okay? So when you look at the development of wheels or the tire selections availabilities out there, it's obviously going to go back to what's most common, right? So if every company out there uses a 15-inch wheel, tire manufacturer is going to produce more 15-inch tires. So when you look over history or you look at like what's being used on the market, you have a lot of 15s, 16s, 18s, but those are your big common sizes. What's not common is what they added on the Ford Bronco Sport. 17s. 17s aren't used on like anything, okay? We bought a set of 17-inch wheels for like our race Miata, and I sold them because they sucked. The tires for the wheels themselves were more expensive just because they were 17s. Exact same tire, exact same manufacturer, exact same compound. It was just more expensive because it was a 17 and not a 15, 16, or 18, and that's what Ford did to us. And I think they did this for a specific reason, okay? They likely have a partnership with these tire manufacturers to run 17s. Because when you go to buy the tire, and the few selections you can get from the factory with with a 17 on it, it's kind of what you find in the store with a 17 on it. The second thing that they did that kind of really screwed everyone over is they ran a lug pattern that isn't used on anything else. And I'm serious. It's used on like some of the old Thunderbirds or the newer Thunderbirds in some cars, but as far as like SUVs or trucks or anything like that, that lug pattern is not used for anything. As a matter of fact, when they came out with the full-size Bronco, they didn't use that lug pattern. And I think this was a way to force us to buy the like 15 styles of wheels that they came out with, because no one's producing it. Okay, why would a company produce wheels if it's not in a lug pattern that's common, right? So they could have chose anything common, like a 4x100, which is used on like Miatas and Honda Civics and all of these, a bunch of sports cars. A 5x105, which is used on like everything. No, they chose a lug pattern that goes to absolutely nothing, and it's really limited everything you're allowed to do, okay? And I mean so much so limited as you are going to struggle to find an aftermarket wheel that Ford isn't producing or supplying to you. And I'm serious. So the only options that we have looking at the Ford Bronco Sport as far as wheels go is to maybe to have a wheel produced, or maybe get an adapter. But adapters are always going to have a thickness. It's going to push the wheel out. I actually like the idea. I think it'll look great. But it's the idea that you still have to find somebody producing an adapter for this lug pattern that hardly exists out there to a common lug pattern so you can get a better tire. Now, to take things even further on really sticking it to you, they decided that they were going to choose a wheel caliper and a rotor size that just barely fits inside the 17s. For how light the SUV is, it didn't need it in the front or the rear, but they chose it to just barely fit inside those 17s. If you look, it really fills the gap, which guess what? That means you're not running 15s. Actually, to be more precise, I'm going to take the wheel off here soon and measure that total overall width, or the width from the center of the hub out to the edge of the caliper, to see what we can run. But I'm having my doubts, guys. It's tight in there. I might be able to get a 16. I really wanted to run a 15, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. And this is Ford's way of forcing us to buy their products. That's all it is. At the end of the day, Ford did what's called cornering a market, okay? They've made something that is so uncommon that you have to now buy from Ford. And it's irritating, because that wheel right there, if I go to Ford, got a little water on your lens there. So that wheel right there that comes directly from Ford will cost me $900 to $1,200 for just the wheel if I go buy it from Ford. That makes you not want to really go off-roading on them, doesn't it? And we were going to buy a spare to toss up on top just in case, something happened. But $900 to $1,200 for that singular wheel. $900 buys you a whole set of 5 if you wanted a cheap off-roading wheel. As a matter of fact, our race wheels run about 60 to 80 bucks a piece. But when we went to find wheels in California, they were $1,200 from the dealership, and they couldn't tell me when they would come in for a single wheel, not including the tire, just the wheel. Tires themselves, again, because it's a 17, is going to cost more than a tire that's a 15, and if it's available. Tire manufacturers just simply aren't going to make a wheel that isn't being used. So if you want to go get an off-road tire, like the one that's on our off-roading or our rally truck, you can see the nice grip on there, you can't be confident that a manufacturer is going to actually produce that tire in that size. Now, you want to see something that looks really nice? Now, we have to be careful with camera angles here because that tire is sitting closer than the Bronco Sport, but the actual diameter of that tire right now is about the same as what the 17 is. Let's come this way. But it's a bigger rubber, it's a bigger sidewall, and it's a bigger thread. It's a bigger sidewall, and it's a bigger tread pattern, and it just simply looks better. But I can't buy that wheel in that lug pattern. Isn't that irritating? Isn't that like outright just irritating? Now, one thing to take note of is when you measure the outside of a wheel. Like, say I go over here and measure this 15-inch race wheel. So tire size is based off of the mounting surface, or this surface inside here. So when we measure across this, we're actually measuring the inside. So that's how we get our 15. So you kind of need to be careful. You don't want to measure outside to outside because that comes out to about 16.25, and that's not the measurement that they're looking at. They're looking at this inside measurement, which is 15, and that's the mounting surface of the tire itself. So again, that's a 17. Let's go see what else we own that's a 17, just to give us an idea of how popular 17s are. Slammed Chrysler 300 project. We're on stock wheels. I would say that mounting surface is probably around here. So we're looking at what? An 18? Dodge Dually. I mean, I don't even have to measure this. We know those aren't 17s, right? Those are clearly 18s. Hard to measure those just because of how far out the center sits. Fiat 500L turbo sleeper van. Again, we got to come into that mounting surface, not the outside edge, okay? So we're going to come in around here. What do we got? 16s. RX-8 Grand Touring. This is your fancy RX-8, okay? 18s. You can see there. Mounting surface to mounting surface, about 18. 1960 Ford Fairlane. Mounting surface to mounting surface is about a 15. This is a CJ5 Jeep, and it's running what, 15s? You know, again, this has a giant bead on it, but the mounting surface is actually in here more. So you got to keep that in mind. It's got that larger bead edge. We're running 15s. Stock Ford Ranger wheels. And again, we're going to come in here a little deeper. The mounting surface is running a 14. All right, I'm going to get in here out of the storm, okay? Because like I said, it's starting to pick up out there. Miata, those are all custom wheels. Those are also race wheels. But you can see everything generally runs a 15 or 16-inch wheel. Sometimes an 18 on bigger stuff. But nothing's running a 17, okay? Nothing. Nothing at all runs a 17. Sometimes on like sports cars, people will throw 17s on there. But generally nothing runs it, which means tire manufacturers aren't making a 17. They're not making a large selection of 17s, that's for sure. So when Ford came out with their 17s, they partnered with some tire manufacturers to make sure there was some selection out there. But even on my Badlands edition, it didn't come with off-road tires. It came with all-terrains with real little tread pattern on it because there's nothing out there. 17s aren't an off-road design. Everyone's running 15s or 16s, and that's so you can have a taller sidewall in there, which is able to flex as you go over terrain. So yeah, that's kind of how they screwed us here. You're stuck using whatever they have on the market. No one makes that lug pattern. So, like I said, the 15 wheels or something that they've come out with now, in every style that you can imagine, from Steelies to, you know, what we have on our Badlands, that's kind of all you have. They've cornered you, and they've really cornered you here, and they won't let you. They've really cornered you here on a limited selection. So one thing I'm going to do, because we work with some tire companies and manufacturers, is I'm going to find a set in that lug pattern, or I'm going to find adapters for it, and we're getting away from those 17s. Let me tell you what. Here's the reality of it all. It might not be a big deal for using your Bronco Sport as a daily driver that barely gets any wear and tear on it and using the same highway back road tires that you use every single day. But for some of us that want to go out and adventure, we need a spare wheel. We need to know that if we take that wheel and we bash it off a rock and we just blow it apart, that we have another one to put on there. We need a tire selection that's going to facilitate our use. We need to be able to put something on there with a big, deep tread. It's going to knock the mud out of there. It's going to, let you go plow through sand and snow. That's what we need, okay? Because the reality is they're trying to compete with the overland market, but they've cornered you on wheel and tire selection. It doesn't make any sense to me, guys. This is the only thing on the Bronco Sport that makes zero sense to me. And I'm a little upset about it because I want to change my tires and wheels out. And I really have to play the game of search. Do I trust the part? Do I like the part? Now that I even consider changing to like 15s, go out there and take everything apart so I can get measurements to see if I can even fit a 15 in there in the first place. Like, it's one thing on like the race truck where I'm like measuring back spacing and all of this stuff to make sure it's going to work. But like on a brand new production, I can't even look it up. Like, I think this was really overlooked. And actually, I don't think it was overlooked. I think it was on purpose. I think they're trying to make a vehicle where you have to buy your parts through Ford. That's what I think. And even the tires that they have out there, the options that they have out there on the Ford sites, you can't simply go out there and buy it from the tire manufacturer. Ford doesn't produce their own tires. They might. Actually, I don't know. Does Ford produce their own tires? Do they have their own tire shops? Or are they buying aftermarket? That's a good question, okay? I'm going to look into this. I don't know if Ford produces their own tires, but they've really screwed us here because you're stuck. And there are some manufacturers out there getting on board, but then that manufacturer has to ask themselves, if I make a tire in that size that only a handful of vehicles ever use, will it sell or will I be stuck with a bunch of stock? That's the reality of it, okay? As a business, you're not going to produce something that maybe 5 people buy. That's dumb. Okay, and if everyone out there is content with their stock tires or their stock wheels, then no one's gonna produce a bunch of parts for it. Okay, they're just now getting brush guards out for it, and we're over a year into it, and the brush guards keep having issues covering up cameras, covering up sensors. So the question here is are you guys happy with this? What's your guys' opinion on this whole subject? Are you happy with this wheel corner that you've gotten put into? Because, the big Bronco guys, the big Bronco guys, as soon as they got their vehicles in, they instantly went out and changed out their wheels and tires because there was a selection out there for them and you could easily do it. And we didn't have that selection. So, are you happy with that? I'm not. I'm irritated by it because they've made it so I have to play a game of talking to manufacturers. I'm in the custom automotive industry, and I'm having issues finding a reliable wheel that I want to put on my vehicle that I like the look of without buying a wheel from Ford and paying like 6 times the actual cost of a wheel. Reality is, I am not going to go to Ford and pay $5,000 for 5 wheels that aren't some 3-piece specialty CNC machine from Billet. If it's not an insane wheel, I'm not gonna go pay $5,000 for a set of 5 for me to go off-roading on. So I'm gonna find another route. Stay on our channel, subscribe, go like us on Facebook, because when I find a wheel selection I like or an adapter that's gonna work that I know is gonna be reliable, like a hub-centric adapter with the correct mounting angles for everything, I will let you know. As a matter of fact, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to test it and I'm going to go off-roading with it before we get too deep into it. So I'll let you know when I put them on there. I'll probably do a small video about it. And if you want to wait for it to really be tested and put to use, then keep watching our videos because we're finally getting out of winter and into spring and summer, and I'm going overlanding and having some good times. So stick around, have fun, tell me what you think about it, and for the love of God, go post your pictures of your Bronco Sport and your other rigs online and send them and tag us in them because I want to see your stuff too. You sit here and watch my stuff, I want to see your stuff. So if you're doing YouTube, post a link somewhere so I can see it. If you've got pictures out there, post them somewhere so I can see it. I want to see what you're doing. What I'm doing is cool, but I want to see what you're doing. What are you doing? You. What are you doing? Have fun. Go have adventures and get out of the house because phones and TVs are the devil and they waste your time. So have fun.
Thank you.